The Sermon on the Mount, a guide to a peaceful life, a deep dive into Jesus' teachings on love, forgiveness, and inner peace. Welcome, my dear friends, to Blissful Heaven, where we explore timeless teachings that can transform our daily lives. I'm your host, Dev, and today we're embarking on a remarkable journey through what many consider the greatest sermon ever delivered, the Sermon on the Mount. Imagine yourself on a hillside in ancient Galilee. The sun is warm, there's a gentle breeze, and thousands of people have gathered to hear a revolutionary teacher named Jesus of Nazareth. What he's about to share will become the foundation of Christian ethics and a universal guide to living a life of peace, love, and purpose. Chapter 1. Setting the stage, the historical context. Before we dive into the teachings themselves, let's set the stage. We're in first century Judea, a time of political tension and social upheaval. The Jewish people are under Roman rule, and various religious and political factions compete for influence. Into this complex world steps Jesus, offering a message that would transcend its time and place. The location itself is significant. Traditional sources identify the site as the Mount of Beatitudes, overlooking the Sea of Galilee. Picture a natural amphitheater, where Jesus' voice could carry to the crowds gathered below. The setting itself becomes part of the message. Teaching from a mountaintop recalls Moses receiving the Ten Commandments on Mount Sinai. What makes this sermon particularly remarkable is its comprehensive nature. In roughly 2,000 words of recorded text, Jesus outlines a complete ethical and spiritual framework for living. It's not just a collection of rules or suggestions. It's a complete reimagining of what it means to live a good and peaceful life. Chapter 2. The Beatitudes, a new definition of happiness. Let's begin where Jesus began, with the Beatitudes. These statements, each starting with blessed, completely flip our conventional understanding of happiness and success on its head. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Think about that for a moment. Jesus isn't starting with the successful, the wealthy, or the powerful. He's saying that true happiness, true blessedness, begins with acknowledging our spiritual poverty, our need for something greater than ourselves. Let's explore each beatitude. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Here's a paradox, finding blessing in sadness. But consider how grief opens our hearts to empathy and compassion. When we experience loss, we become more attuned to others' pain. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. In a world that celebrates assertiveness and self-promotion, Jesus suggests that true power lies in gentleness and humility. The meek aren't weak, they're strong enough to be gentle. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. This isn't about self-righteousness, but a genuine desire for justice and goodness. It's about having a passion for what's right and true. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Here we see a fundamental principle: what we give out returns to us. When we extend mercy to others, we create a more merciful world. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. This speaks to the importance of integrity and authentic living. It's not enough to appear good, our hearts must align with our actions. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Notice Jesus doesn't say peace lovers, but peacemakers. This is active, not passive. It requires effort and initiative to create peace. Blessed are those who are persecuted for righteousness' sake, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Chapter 3. The new law transforming from within. Jesus then moves to address the relationship between his teachings and the Jewish law. This is crucial because many in his audience might have wondered if he was proposing to overthrow their traditional beliefs. Do not think that I have come to abolish the law or the prophets. I have not come to abolish them, but to fulfill them. What follows is a series of statements that begin, "You have heard it said." But I tell you, in each case, Jesus takes an existing commandment and deepens its meaning, moving from external behavior to internal transformation. Let's explore these transformative teachings. On anger, you have heard it said, "You shall not murder." But I tell you that anyone who is angry with a brother or sister will be subject to judgment. This is revolutionary. Jesus is saying that the root of violence is anger, and that's where we need to focus our attention. It's not enough to refrain from physical violence. We need to address the anger in our hearts that can lead to harmful words and actions. He even advises leaving your gift at the altar and first reconciling with someone you've wronged. This prioritizes relationships and reconciliation over religious ritual. On relationships and integrity, Jesus addresses marriage, divorce, and the making of oaths. His central message: be truthful in all your dealings. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. Simple, direct honesty becomes the foundation of all relationships. Chapter 4: The Revolutionary Teaching of Love. Now we come to what might be the most challenging and revolutionary part of Jesus' teaching. You have heard that it was said, "Love your neighbor and hate your enemy." But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. This teaching has lost none of its radical power over 2,000 years. Think about it, Jesus is saying that the circle of those we should love includes not just our friends and family, not just our neighbors, but even those who actively work against us. Why is this so important? Because when we love our enemies, we break the cycle of revenge. We maintain our own inner peace. We create the possibility of transformation. We reflect the universal love of God. Jesus provides practical examples. If someone strikes you on one cheek, turn the other. If someone takes your coat, give them your cloak as well. If someone forces you to go 1 mile, go 2. These aren't instructions for becoming a doormat. They're strategies for maintaining your dignity and agency while refusing to participate in the cycle of violence and retaliation. Chapter 5: The Practice of Private Virtue. Jesus then turns to religious practices, specifically giving to the poor, prayer, and fasting. His central message: do these things privately, not for show. Be careful not to practice your righteousness in front of others to be seen by them. On giving, when you give to the needy, do not announce it with trumpets. Do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing. This teaching speaks to motivation. Are we helping others to truly help them, or to boost our own reputation? True virtue, Jesus suggests, doesn't need an audience. On prayer, here we find the Lord's Prayer, a model of simplicity and comprehensiveness. Let's break it down. Our Father in heaven acknowledges our relationship with God, reminds us we're part of a larger family. Hallowed be your name expresses reverence and respect, sets the proper perspective for prayer. Your kingdom come, your will be done, aligns our will with divine purpose, reminds us to seek the greater good. Give us today our daily bread, acknowledges our dependence, teaches us to live in the present. Forgive us our debts, as we forgive our debtors, links receiving forgiveness with giving it, makes forgiveness practical and immediate. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil, acknowledges our need for guidance, seeks protection from harmful influences. Chapter 6: The Challenge of Materialism. Jesus then addresses one of the most persistent challenges to peaceful living: materialism and anxiety about material needs. Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal, but store up for yourselves treasures in heaven. This isn't just about money, it's about what we value and trust in. Jesus isn't saying material things are bad, but that they shouldn't be our primary focus or source of security. He follows this with one of the most quoted passages: no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. Then comes the beautiful passage about anxiety. Look at the birds of the air. They do not sow or reap or store away in barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not much more valuable than they? This teaching isn't promoting irresponsibility, but rather a proper perspective on what truly matters. Jesus is addressing the root cause of so much of our stress and conflict, our attachment to material security. Chapter 7, The Golden Rule and Discernment. Jesus provides what many consider the summit of ethical teaching. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. This simple principle, known as the Golden Rule, appears in various forms in many religions and ethical systems. But Jesus makes it active and positive. It's not just about avoiding harm, but actively doing good. He follows this with teachings about discernment, the narrow gate, false prophets, and good fruit, building on rock versus sand. These teachings remind us that while love and acceptance are central, we still need wisdom and discernment. Not every path leads to peace. Not every teacher is authentic. Not every foundation is solid. Chapter 8, Practical Applications for Today. How do we apply these ancient teachings to our modern lives? Let's explore some practical applications. In personal life, practice forgiveness as a daily habit. Cultivate inner peace through prayer and meditation. Live simply and share generously. Focus on character development over external success. In relationships, address conflicts early and directly. Seek reconciliation over revenge. Practice active listening and empathy. Extend love beyond your comfort zone. In society, engage in peacemaking initiatives. Support justice while practicing mercy. Use wealth and influence for the common good. Build bridges across dividing lines. Chapter 9, The Challenge of Living These Teachings. Let's be honest, these teachings are challenging. They go against many of our natural instincts and cultural conditioning. When someone hurts us, our first impulse isn't usually to turn the other cheek. When we see someone in need, we might hesitate to give generously. But that's precisely the point. These teachings aren't meant to confirm our natural inclinations. They're meant to transform them. They present a path to becoming more than we are, to growing into our highest potential. Consider some common challenges. 1. The challenge of forgiveness. Understanding that forgiveness benefits the forgiver. Learning to forgive without enabling harmful behavior. Practicing forgiveness as a process, not a one-time event. 2. The challenge of non-retaliation. Finding creative responses to aggression. Maintaining dignity while refusing revenge. Building peace without becoming passive. 3. The challenge of trust. Learning to trust in spiritual provision. Balancing responsibility with faith. Overcoming anxiety about the future. Chapter 10, The Impact Through History. The Sermon on the Mount has influenced countless individuals and movements throughout history. Martin Luther King Jr. based his nonviolent resistance on these teachings. Mahatma Gandhi found inspiration here for his philosophy of satyagraha. Dorothy Day's Catholic worker movement drew heavily from this sermon. Leo Tolstoy's philosophy of nonviolence was shaped by these words. These teachings have proven their practical power in some of history's most significant social transformations. They've shown that love is not weak, forgiveness is not passive, and peace is not merely the absence of conflict. Chapter 11, Scientific Support for These Teachings. Modern research has begun to validate many of these ancient teachings. Studies show forgiveness reduces stress and improves health. Research confirms that giving brings greater happiness than receiving. Mindfulness practices, similar to Jesus' teachings on prayer, reduce anxiety. Social science reveals the effectiveness of nonviolent conflict resolution. Psychology has discovered that many of Jesus' teachings align with optimal human functioning. The importance of authenticity, pure in heart. The value of purpose beyond oneself, seeking first the kingdom. The benefits of gratitude and trust, consider the lilies. The power of forgiveness for mental health. Chapter 12, Living These Teachings in the Digital Age. How do we apply these teachings in our modern, connected world? Social media. Practice digital kindness. Avoid online revenge or calling out. Share uplifting content. Build bridges across division. Work life. Maintain integrity in business. Practice servant leadership. Balance ambition with ethics. Create peaceful workplace cultures. Environmental stewardship. Apply Jesus' teachings about simplicity to consumption. Care for creation as part of seeking first the kingdom. Share resources globally. Chapter 13. Personal transformation. The Sermon on the Mount isn't just about external behavior, it's about internal transformation. Jesus is describing what humans can become when they align themselves with divine love and truth. Consider the progression. 1. Recognition of spiritual need, poor in spirit. 2. Emotional honesty, those who mourn. 3. Character development, meek, merciful, pure in heart. 4. Active engagement, peacemakers. 5. Resilience in adversity, persecuted for righteousness. This transformation isn't instant. It's a journey. Each day presents new opportunities to choose love over hate, practice forgiveness over resentment, build peace instead of conflict, trust instead of worry, give instead of hoard. Chapter 14. Building community. These teachings aren't just individual, they're about creating community. When we live these principles, we strengthen relationships, build trust, create safe spaces, foster reconciliation, promote justice with mercy. The Sermon on the Mount envisions a community where conflicts are resolved through dialogue, resources are shared, everyone is valued, peace is actively built, love extends to all. Chapter 15. Daily practices. Let's conclude with some practical daily practices. Morning. Begin with the Lord's Prayer or similar meditation. Set intentions for peace and love. Practice gratitude. During the day, pause before reacting. Choose forgiveness. Look for opportunities to give. Practice presence. Evening. Review the day's choices. Release resentments. Plan tomorrow's good works. Rest in trust. The Sermon on the Mount remains one of humanity's greatest guides to peaceful living. Its teachings are both simple and profound, practical and aspirational. They challenge us to grow beyond our natural reactions and into our highest potential. As we conclude our exploration, remember that these teachings aren't just an ancient text. They're a living invitation to transform ourselves and our world. Each day presents new opportunities to put them into practice, to choose love over fear, peace over conflict, forgiveness over resentment. Whether you approach these teachings from a religious perspective or simply as practical wisdom, they offer a tested path to personal peace and social harmony. In our divided and often troubled world, they remain as relevant and revolutionary as ever. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the Sermon on the Mount. Until next time, may you find peace, practice love, and experience the joy of living these timeless teachings. Remember, as Jesus said, "Everyone then who hears these words of mine and does them will be like a wise man who built his house on the rock." Let's build our lives on these principles and watch how they transform both us and our world.